Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how the heck are you doing? I believe we are in August. Yep, August 6th when you hear this. How's your summer going? Is it hot where you're at? If you're on the other side of the continent, is it cool? This episode, I think, is going to be pretty brief. I don't have a lot of notes. Jen is on vacation for a couple of weeks, so it's on me for recording a next couple of episodes. And I thought I would talk a little bit about where I'm at with my OCD, my attachment injuries, and it's relevant with Jen being on vacation right now. I always get nervous if this is going to be cohesive, if I'm going to remember everything, and it probably will not be perfect, and I won't remember everything, and done is better than perfect, and good enough is okay. It is Thursday while I'm recording this, and Jen left Tuesday, but on Monday she had a really busy day. We didn't get to talk a lot. I fortunately had coaching on Monday and was able to talk to my coach about what my concerns were while Jen was gone, and we talked about what it was that I needed. And it's interesting because I have this narrative that these are my wounds, my trauma, my OCD, my job to take care of it all on my own, and that to ask Jen for anything is not okay. I'm sure this is part of my trauma. And it really felt affirming and validating when my coach asked me what it is, like if I could have anything, what it is that I wanted. And I really started to think about it. It does help when we connect in the morning, and that can be a text, it can be a polo, it can be me just reaching out and saying, hey, how are you? And her responding. And then maybe another text or a polo during the day. And then I thought it would be nice if we're able to connect via FaceTime or have a phone call or two while she's gone. And I talked to Jen about this was what my hope was. Historically, when Jen has gone away, and I don't know that this is a fair comparison because this is a new relationship for her, and a couple times when she's gone away, I had this viewpoint that she's gone, there's no room for me, I didn't take up much space. And I think with the newness of the relationship, that was kind of her perspective as well. I don't want to make assumptions. You've heard Jen and I talk about our relationship to time is very different, that she can be involved in her life and hold me in her heart and doesn't lose that connection, where at this point, I'm really working on knowing that there's a place for me and that I can take up space. But without that actual connection, it is challenging for me to hang on to. It's been much better. I'm really pleased with where I'm at. My other concern was Jen is going away on vacation, and I don't want to be, the word that comes to mind is the problem child, which is not kind and compassionate. But my fear is, what if I get activated? What if I get dysregulated? And then she has to take time to do rupture and repair work with me. And I had to let that be okay, because it's almost like if you get panic attacks and you're afraid of not having a panic attack, that is most likely going to bring on a panic attack. I really had to work on knowing that it's okay for me to take up space, as much space as I need. And I talked to Jen about this. And one of the OCD lies was, you're being too much and she's not going to tell you, and it's going to ruin the relationship. And I just had to talk to Jen and say, I'm going to trust that if you don't have the capacity or we need to make a change, then you will let me know. Jen has also really made a huge concerted effort to create containers for me and to be more mindful about reaching out and responding. She's always been very good about responding, but I think she's being even more conscientious. And I think that over the weekend, last weekend, I think I reached out and maybe I FaceTimed her and she had something going on, and she got back to me and said, I will be free between this time and this time, which really was a huge difference. It just lets my nervous system rest. And I recorded an episode, I'm not sure which one, where she said she'd call and then I felt like I was waiting all day, and it keeps my nervous system activated because it's like sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring. And I'm not literally sitting by the phone, but because this is trauma, because there's OCD, my nervous system gets very activated and involved, and managing that can take a toll on me. It's my job, it's my responsibility. And when Jen is able to create a container by saying, I will call you between these times, it makes a huge difference. And knowing that she is making this effort also helps my nervous system relax. I feel connected. My wounds are about, I don't matter, I don't belong, I don't have a right to take up space, I'm invisible, I will disappear. These are very young. This is not about Jen. This is activating trauma that is true and real for me, but gets activated with Jen. And as we're having these consistent connections, it is helping to, I'm not sure what the word is, but to repair some of those attachment injuries. It's almost like, it's not reparenting because Jen is not my parent, but it's helping me with that secure connection. And the more I'm able to talk about it and Jen is able to be there and respond, it's helping to reset kind of a new neural pathway, a new narrative for me, that what is going on with Jen is not what happened in my past. And I'm clear about that. But until we have a corrective experience, I don't think that our bodies really know it. We can know it intellectually, but it's having this corrective experience that is what creates new wiring. I don't know if you're a neuroscientist and I'm wrong, then feel free to reach out and tell me, but this is what it feels like to me. Monday was a very, very busy day for Jen. We really did not get a chance to connect. I think she FaceTimed me while I had a client. And then by the time I was done, she was involved in something. And I just said, I know you're busy, probably not going to be able to connect, and let it go. And she did FaceTime me while I was walking the dogs. I had a very difficult conversation with somebody on Sunday. And because of our time difference, by the time my conversation was done, Jen was already in bed. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it much on Monday. I did leave her a brief Marco Polo and said, I'd really like to process this with you when it works. I know you have a lot going on. And Jen had said on Tuesday, when she and her partner were driving to their destination, they were going to be in a car for a handful of hours, that we could talk. And it's funny, when we talked about this, I didn't know what time that was. And I felt really afraid to ask her. I don't know what that's about. I just did. But it was nice on Tuesday morning. I think she left a Marco Polo for me and let me know about the times that they'd be in the car. And we did get to talk. Unfortunately, the reception was very poor. We kept freezing up. I was grateful we had the chance to connect. I was grateful I was able to talk a little bit about this difficult conversation that I had. I think because there were other things going on, it did not feel like the conversation that I had expected. And that's okay. It's okay to have expectations. It's okay to know that she took time. We got a chance to talk. I was wanting something probably a little bit different. And it's okay. Like, all of that is okay. And what I really tried to do while she was gone was to keep checking in with myself and remind myself my wounds, again, are, I don't matter. I'm invisible. I disappear. I'm trying to think of what else they are. And to remind myself consciously, I'm connected, I belong, I matter. And doing the inner repair work that I'm connected to me. I think I've created an archetype that's a loving, unconditional, strong parent. And really doing the work, the healing work is partially with Jen, but it's really about this connection to myself and knowing that I'm here for me no matter what. And that secure connection is really about me, my archetype. That's where the primary healing needs to come from. And I'm consistently doing that work and dialoguing with the young parts that feel disconnected and like she doesn't matter. And then bringing in that archetype parent to really be there for me in a way that I never had and that I really need. So I want to be clear that this isn't just about Jen. There's a mix here. Every morning when I wake up, before I get on my phone, I do a check-in about how are those younger parts feeling as far as connection? What are they needing from me? I do some work with that archetypal parent to make sure that I'm feeling grounded and connected. And then I check in to see what is it that I'm needing. It was interesting. Over the weekend, one of the days I woke up and thought, I'm okay with not connecting with Jen. I think that'll be okay. And then she texted me, and then I think she FaceTimed me. And I'm really trying to give myself permission. I have so much resistance around having needs that there's a very big part of me that doesn't want to need Jen, does not want to need the connection, that wants to be independent, that wants to manage on my own, that wants to be fine if I don't hear from her. If she goes away for a week, there's a part of me that feels like I want to be okay not talking to her. And those are all really nice. That's just not where I'm at right now. So I can either fight it and be angry and resistant, which usually leads me into dysregulation and a meltdown. Or I can know that it's okay to have needs and it's okay to be where I'm at. And sometimes Jen will be able to meet those needs and sometimes she can't. And it's not about her and my sense of survival, which is part of what I think this deep pull is. And for me to continue to do the work that I need to be doing. And it's been really nice. A couple mornings I've woken up and there's been a polo from her or a text from her. And if there's not, then I reach out and she's been very responsive. And then I notice during the day, checking in, what am I needing? I do feel like there's a part of me that there's an old meme of a cat on a pull-up chin bar that says, hang in there, baby. And I feel like I'm hanging on and I don't know how long I can hang on. And one of the OCD lies is, you've done this for a few days, but you're not going to be able to keep doing this. It's going to get worse. And when she turns around and goes on the next trip, it's going to be worse and you're going to get dysregulated. And the thought is there and I really can't do anything about it. I can acknowledge it and that's all I can do. There has been this tension of needing to do the corrective work, be attuned with what's going on for me. I don't feel like I've been preoccupied. When I'm focused on something, I'm able to focus on what I'm focused on. And then when there's a break or there's time for my mind to wander, then it does. It is interesting. I had talked about being in this very expansive space socially and did a lot of connecting. And then I got a little bit more contracted and didn't have that bandwidth to be with people. And then I got very tasky and busy, which was nice. I had some big areas of clutter in the house that I tackled. So nice to look in these spaces. My heart just goes like, because there's not clutter there. How long I'll be able to maintain it, I don't know. But I'm also having this sense of my energy is coming down. I'm not having this push. I mean, I'm still moving my body every day, minimum 30 minutes, often an hour and a half because of Aquafit and then walking the dogs or taking the dogs to Fiesta Island. But I'm having this sense of, I was talking to my coach and she was saying that she really related in the movie Inside Out 2 with the character ennui, boredom. Meh. That's what it feels like. Everything feels a little bit meh right now. I had made some really nice connections with a bunch of people and it feels like they're just kind of at a standstill right now. I've pretty much done my part and people are just doing what they do. So that feels a little bit frustrating. I'm having some struggles with crochet. I finished some projects and didn't have a new project and looked for projects, couldn't find anything. And then I found one and then I went to print it out and I ran out of printer ink because it was very long. Then I started it last night and realized that something got very off and I'm not sure how to correct it. I tried to take out some rows. So that's feeling a little bit discouraging and annoying because I like having a good project to keep myself busy with. So I'm also having this, I think it's if I were only feeling connected socially, if I only had a great crochet project, if I only had a little bit more in my life, it might ease things in missing Jen. And there may be some truth in that. And all I can do is be where I'm at and do the things that I'm doing and keep putting one foot in front of the other and showing up for myself. And that's the best that I can do. I did notice yesterday that I was starting to have a little bit of, I want to say fear that I knew that Jen did not have clients today and that the day was open. And that I was feeling ready to have a conversation with her, to talk by FaceTime or by phone. When things are balance between us. We connect a couple times a day, and it is not uncommon for us to FaceTime every day. So that's our regular pattern of communication. We go in and out of it for a number of different reasons, but that's what our baseline is. And it had really been a couple of days since we had a couple conversations, but there's lots of changes going on. So I left Jenna Polo yesterday and just said, hey, if it works in the next couple of days, I would love to have a FaceTime call or a phone call with you. And if that's not how you want to be using your time on vacation, I understand. And I said, I don't know if this is part of the OCD lie. I just want to connect with you in the morning. She's doing that. I just want to connect twice a day. She's doing that. I just want a phone call. And so I don't know if this is part of the OCD lie. I don't know if this is part of just what I need. And it's not my job to figure it out and do it perfectly. My job is to communicate about what's going on and to see what happens. And part of a little bit of the work that I had to do is, what if Jen decides that she doesn't want to have a phone call while she's on this vacation? And I did some inner work and it's okay to be angry and disappointed about that. It's okay to want the connection, and it's okay to have feelings about not having the connection and to allow that. And I think that it's often common to have a belief that we have to manage everything perfectly. The other thing that came up for me, I've had a couple of interesting insights. And one of them is, and this is not about Jen, but this idea of Jen is gone and I'm not allowed to struggle. And when I communicate with her, whether I'm leaving a text or a polo, I need to be in a good, happy place, and I need to make her feel comfortable that it's not okay for me to be struggling or having anything going on that's going to make her feel responsible or have feelings. That is not coming from Jen. A lot of this stuff I think is historical. I don't think it was ever spoken, but it feels like these are the messages that I received. And so when I leave Jenna Polo, I will say, hey, are you okay if I process? And then I've just given her that information. It's been a really interesting insight. And so I did let Jen know that I wanted to connect by phone. And this morning I woke up and she texted me. I was up and then she texted me good morning, which was enough. And I texted her good morning back. One about my morning. And then she called me and we had a nice chat. She has some concerns about this next part of the vacation, about how connected she can stay because of all of the moving pieces that are going on. I have a little bit of concern too, but I told her that I trusted that we would work through it. I also really validated how much I appreciate her making a concerted effort to reach out and stay connected. I said, it really does seem to help. And then how in business places, they have those OSHA, how many days since the last accident? I said, we need to have a countdown of how many days since our last rupture and repair. But I said, it really does seem to make a difference that if I have those connections, it seems to help my nervous system. It helps to do that corrective, I don't know if it's reparenting attachment work to remind me that I'm connected. I think when I have context about what's going on, I'm not asking for information. I'm not checking to see if she's listened to my polos. I'm not looking at her location. I'm not checking to see if texts have been read. I'm really working on trusting and letting all those things go. I'm just trusting that the connection is there and that I don't need to do all of these lies that I think help me gather information or data to feel secure. I lost my train of thought a little bit, so if this feels a little bit disjointed, it's because it is. On this next trip that Jen is taking, her partner and her kids are going. She's gone there every summer, so we've been through this a couple of times, and she invited me to go, and I just didn't, and I haven't said anything. And in our phone call this morning, she said again today, I wish you were coming. And I didn't respond. And when we got off the phone, I processed a little bit and I had an insight that my belief is that there's no room for me. There's no space for me there, that her partner is there, her kids are there. There's not a place for me to fit in. And when I was a kid, it was not uncommon for my mom to always tell me to bring something to entertain myself. And I was reflecting when I was very young, I'd say maybe 5, 6, 7. I remember attending college classes with my mom, not on a regular basis, but I went a handful of times. And I remember some of the students that were in her class from that time period. And when my mom would be dating, that it was just always common for me to bring something for me to entertain myself with. I'm not saying this is what my mom was saying. This is not about my mom. But what I realized this morning is what I internalized was you will need to entertain yourself, that you cannot count on me to be there for you, to help you co-regulate, to entertain you, to be with you. So you need to always have things with you because you really can't count on me, but you can count on the things that you bring. And my things are very important to me. And I made this connection with Jen inviting me to go to Maine to this cabin that there wouldn't be room for me. I left her a polo, and I also let her know that, if she was in the car with her partner, that I was fine with her partner listening to it. I just thought that was an interesting insight. And then I kind of had this thing of, I wonder if I can go. Last year, I got that last minute invite to the Poconos and kind of dropped everything and went to the Poconos the next day. And I had that thought about going to Maine. I'm not going to, but I think this is really important for me, and to know that I do fit in, I do belong, I do matter, I can be part of the family constellation, and it's not this historical belief that it's Jen and her partner, and then there's me when there's room for me, and only when there's room for me am I allowed to slide back in. And it was actually kind of nice. Jen was leaving me a polo yesterday, and her partner walked in, and so he said hi, and when Jen and I talked on the phone when they were driving out, we chatted a little bit. And I think that's the next step of incorporating the three of us a little bit more into this conversation. So it's not this private thing with just Jen and I. I mean, that is the most satisfying when Jen and I have time together to talk about the things that are meaningful. But when it comes to an either or, it's only when Jen has alone time that she connects with me, or there's nothing, as opposed to I can be part of times when she's with her partner, when she's with her kids, when they're all together. It's just really a lot of growth and change. I was also doing a little bit of inner work this morning, and the last time that Jen went away, and it's possible at the beginning of this trip too, that there's this young part that feels like I become invisible and I don't exist and I don't matter. And again, I know this has nothing to do with Jen. I'm an adult. I'm not going to disappear. But it feels like that is starting to fade into the background as I'm having these consistent connections with Jen, because I think historically with the OCD thoughts and not knowing that they were OCD thoughts, that in the space between connection, I believe the OCD lies. She's busy. She doesn't care about you. You don't matter. You only get time when she gets back or when she has a minute, but you don't exist right now. I don't know how clear those thoughts are. I'm not feeling super connected to them, but that would feel like the reality, and that in turn would dysregulate me, or I could stay regulated, but I'd feel disconnected from Jen. This feels like huge, huge progress for me. It really does, being able to maintain this sense of connection, knowing that when I don't hear from Jen, it's just because she's got things going on. The other part of it is I don't know if it's the OCD part, but that's what I'm going to call it. This part, when I want to start doing testing, and when I catch it, I really try and stay ahead of the curve, because this will take me down in spiral of, I left a message. Did she listen? I said I wanted a phone call. Did she say she was going to call me? This kind of testing behavior. I'm not going to reach out to her. Is she going to reach out to me? I know she doesn't have clients. Is she going to reach out to me? Which is why I'm asking less and less about her schedule and what's going on. My brain loves logistics and details, but I think there's a place where that gets tangled up in the OCD of having data and information. And then I use that and it creates suffering for myself. So I'm asking less about details. If she tells me, that's fine. But I think the part of me that feels insecurely attached wants to know what's going on, what is the lay of the land, when could there be room for me, and having expectations instead of letting that go, touching base with myself internally and figuring out what it is that I'm wanting and needing and asking for it, and knowing that I may or may not get it. And if I don't get it, that may bring up feelings, and I may have to deal with those feelings, and that's okay also. I think the last thing that I want to talk about, and it's not a very major thing, I had mentioned when I met with Jen that I was given 2 medications when I met with a psychiatrist. One is specifically for the OCD, and one is a beta blocker just to help my nervous system calm down. And I started out on the lowest doses of both of these with a very slow titration. And I just happened to get an Apple Watch recently. And when I started taking the beta blocker, my heart rate was dropping below 40 beats per minute while I slept. So I would wake up and get a notification. I didn't feel anything. Didn't wake me up. Didn't have any idea that it went on, only because I got the notification. So then I thought, well, maybe what I need to do is to not take the medication at night as described. So I took it the next day. I didn't know how I'd feel if I took it in the morning and I was going to Aquafit and I had to drive. So I took it at noon because I had counted, when am I taking it? When is my heart rate dipping? This gave me more than enough time. I took it at noon. My heart rate still dropped again. Last night, I did not take the medication. My heart rate still dropped this morning. I am not going to be taking the beta blocker right now. I'm just going to gather data. I tend to have a low resting heart rate as it is. And I don't know if the beta blocker is still in my system. Like I said, it's a very low dose. But for now, we're just going to put that on the table. It's not even a therapeutic dose of the OCD med, but it seems to be helping. I did call my doctor. I reached out to the psychiatrist as soon as I got the low heart rate message. He's not very responsive. So I reached out to my doctor and got a call the next day when they opened up. And so I am going to see a doctor on Monday and see if there's anything that we need to do, especially if my heart rate continues to go below 40 beats a minute and I'm not taking the beta blocker. Just stuff we're going to go with the flow and figure this stuff out. And I have to be okay if after I finish recording, if I remember that I forgot to say something. So this is just going to have to be good enough. I think it's really important when you're going through challenging times to know that it's okay if it's hard. It's okay if you struggle, to notice the wins. I've been feeling less enthusiastically joyful. Like on my Apple Watch, I can rate my mood. It gives me a reminder a couple times a day where it's very unpleasant, slightly unpleasant, neutral, slightly, it's not positive, slightly pleasant, very pleasant. And I was having those expansive days where I was really in touch with feeling lots of joy. We need to talk about joy and being autistic, but maybe not in this episode. And I wish there was a way to rate what was going on, because sometimes I just feel like I'm neutral, like I'm calm, but I'm neutral because I'm just taking a lot of energy managing. And it makes it really hard to be joyful when a lot of my energy is just going into redirecting my mind and reassuring myself. It's just how it is. If y'all have a good tracker for mood where you can put notations, that's part of the challenge, is it doesn't really have a way to indicate what it is that I'm working on. But anyways, I think that's all I have, everyone. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's how your brain is wired. You have a right to take up space. You have a right to be loud, noisy, stimmy, needy, ask for what you want. It's okay to not do that. It's okay to not want conflict. It's okay to not take up space. It's okay to be aware of your needs and not be in a place where you can ask for them. It's okay to feel joy and bliss and peace and to stim and to engage in your special interests, to feel connected. If you're feeling disconnected, that's okay too. I think that existential loneliness is something that is a big thing. And I think especially while you're doing trauma work, having to go back and feel that disconnection and all those places where those wounds happened is just part of it. I don't want anybody to be suffering. If you are suffering and not doing well, please reach out and get support and help. I do not endorse suffering. You are not for everybody. Everyone is not for you. If you can find one or two of your people, that is great. Rupture and repair work is not a bad thing. It leads to more intimacy. If you have people that you can do that with, great. And if you have people and you can't go there, that's also okay too. I think that's it. Have a blessed day.